All right, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully, everybody stayed in the rhythm of this with us having 3 weeks in between. So welcome aboard. To recap, tonight is going to be on fundraising. Hopefully it's going to be extremely interactive because we're going to need it to be. A couple of the speakers that we reached out to talk to us this evening were not able to join us. So Todd and I have come up with what we believe to be some great topics for us to talk about and hopefully engage everybody in those discussions. Let's go over our reading from last time. The page numbers, I forget them again that we were supposed to read. I had it written down.
Chapter 3.
It was all of chapter 3, right?
Yeah.
No.
Wasn't that?
103 to 124.
Oh, shoot.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the best quote I found was on 129.
Well,
You could still
those
share
are
it.
right ahead.
No. Shame on me.
I'll give you authority to share that, Jody, by presidential fiat.
There you go. Well, it says, it's true that leaders are in the what, how, and when business, but ultimately, we all must be in the opportunity business because exceeding potential is not just about each of us, it's about all of us. So I want us to remember the opportunity business for when we start talking about tonight's topic. Anybody have anything they want to share from their readings that didn't go beyond the pages we were supposed to read?
Well, if we take that thought and go back to page 123, that really gets into the embracing of something larger than just yourself.
Yeah.
Belonging to belong. Right? So, yeah.
I like the statement in the beginning of chapter 3 that said it compared looking through a telescope the right way versus backwards, so that you get, and if you look through it the right way, you get a magnified view. And if you look through it the wrong way, you get a minified view, which is kind of like the big picture versus the small picture. And I think that was a good way to look at life in general. You know, the big picture is certainly better than the small limited view picture.
I like the one on 116, I think it is. We need to remember, while reality keeps us grounded, hope will always inspire. Kind of remind me of Fifth Degree too.
Yeah, it does,
Oh.
doesn't it?
Mhm.
I had that one also, but I also like the one on 121. We need to articulate just how much every person matters, because while the organization wants is not motivation enough. And I think when you're talking about fundraising, it's not just what you want, it's what the whole group wants.
Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I was looking at what Robert said about the magnifying the telescope. And as soon as I read that, I was thinking about the biblical story about Lot leaving Sodom and Gomorrah. And they were told by God not to look back. And his wife looked back and became a pillar of salt. And I thought, yeah, don't ever look back and think back, but don't stay on it and go forward from there. I thought the Bible already had said that story a long time ago.
That's very very poignant, Dorothy. One of my regular rants about our organization is that we get hung up on our history. We want to preserve our history so much that some of our Grangers can't move beyond our history. And the world has changed so much in the last couple of years that our history is going to serve us extremely well, but it will cripple us if we don't move on from it. Never abandon who we have become, who we are, who we were, who we become. Just let's all work to make it better. So.
As somebody who sits in history most of the time these days, I find that we need to use it as a foundation to grow from, more so than, I mean, we can't, like you said, we can't forget it, but we need to really take that as a base and then build upon it and grow from there.
Yeah, lessons to learn from and lessons to be able to move forward and improve ourselves. Well put, Terry.
Terry, hold that thought. Karen.
Oh, thank you. I think I'm in the middle. So yes, agreeing about the history, but I sometimes feel like the Grange gets treading water, thinking if only for the future, what could be, what may be, how can we get there? I guess at this moment, I am thinking I want to cherish the present. We have a lot of new members joining. They're joining because of what we are right now. They hear a little bit about our history. They hear about our hopes for the future, but whatever is right now can be working, and I want to just recognize that.
So that's a perfect segue. That's exactly the direction I was going to go in, Karen. How does a Reading, a Wallingford, and all of these new members in Granby, they don't have history to rely on. They don't have history to look back on, right? So they need to understand how we got to where we are so that they can grow forward, right? Because they can't start from day one as a brand new organization like the Grange has never existed. There is a rich history. There was solid pavement under their feet, right? And to everybody's point thus far, they need to understand the history. They don't need to relive the history. And many of our members in many of our legacy Granges, and I think that's the word I'm going to start using, these legacy Granges where they haven't had the luxury of new members in a long time. They're just holding on to their history to the point where it's crippling, right? And that is so detrimental to the overall health because that takes a lot of energy, right? It takes far more energy to work with a legacy Grange than it does Reading, Wallingford, or Granby, because they've got the energy, they've got the fire, they've got the spark. They want to do it, right? In the legacy Granges, we're trying to figure out how to light the fire in that Grange again. Robin.
The thing you want to be really careful of is being from Wallingford and being a new Grange, but with a lot of understanding of the history, because I had family members that were very involved with the Grange. The thing we want to be careful of is that we move forward while respecting the history, but not allowing the history to keep us tied to things that won't serve us any longer. And I think that's sometimes a needle that you have to thread, because it's real easy to get caught into things that, well, this is always how we've done it. And sometimes there may be a better way to do it. And it's all in how everything is managed. But I know we've got a lot of excitement and energy in Wallingford. And we're trying to learn all of the history around everything and do everything the right way, but also in a way that will move us forward and meet what we want to do and what our vision of where the Grange should be is. So my biggest fear, I guess, is that we don't get too hung up on trying to redo the history. I think we have to respect it and take the best parts of it and then change it and move it as we go forward.
Thank you, Debbie.
Going back to what you were saying about legacy Granges, I've come in from New York State a few years back, and my biggest hassle is, well, that's the way we always did it. And it's normally the older members who don't want any change, be it a fundraiser, doing a degree differently, you know, maybe just some little thing, but they don't want to hear it. And that's the way it was in old Grange I was in. It's like, you have the old standbys that just don't want to change, and it discourages people from wanting to bring new ideas and continuing to work with them. It creates bad feelings, if not splitting Granges.
Yes, I would like to add to your list of Granges that you were talking about, Jody, Cannon Grange. Maggie and I went down to visit Cannon and inspect them on Thursday. And I was kind of flabbergasted when they reported their contents of their treasury. They've had a extremely successful period with rentals, and they've got their fair coming up. But for a small group who's trying to expand, even though they may not be a traditional Grange in the terms of the ritual and all of that, they are really in the Grange spirit. They want to keep going. They want to do things positively, get their name in the community. The only thing I wish is that they had more connection to the levels of Grange above them, so that they were more connected and that they could share what they're doing that is working so well for them. Because believe me, by their increase in the amount in their treasury, they are doing some fantastic things.
Excellent. Phil?
One of the things in there was a quote that said, "As we raise our sights, we elevate others as well. Their aspirations become our inspiration." If we look at the legacy Granges and we say to them, listen to what new members are saying, or go out and get new members, you're not only raising them up, but you're raising yourself up. And I think that that's a key we have to look at. That whatever growth we look at, or however we want to change, or however we try to raise funds in the fundraisers, remember that there's somebody out there looking at that thinking it'll work. It should be your inspiration to help them make it work.
Excellent point. Carol?
I wanted to go back to the Granges. Some Granges do more rituals than others. And I guess what I would like to know is how much ritual is required, because I feel like ritual is a good thing, but I feel like it's not good for attracting new people.
Well, the IRS states that with us being a fraternal organization, that we are required to follow the procedures of our organization. And those are all in the manual, the opening and the closing process. And they have alternate openings and closings. But to truly qualify to be the 501c5, are we fives or eights? Todd?
Five,
Well, some
five,
eight, some
eights and
five.
tens.
Oh, all right. Well, nobody should be at 10, but that's neither here nor there. Those are old ones if they're 10s. But anyway, to truly qualify for our nonprofit status, the IRS does state that we have to maintain our fraternal connection, which is basically the ritual, right? It's nothing but an agenda. The opening and the closing and the order of business is nothing but the agenda for our meeting. I mean, Dave Roberts has been in Boston. I don't know if he's still in Boston, but he's been in Boston for the last couple of days at a Lions function. And I would imagine they have certain ceremonies, quote unquote, rituals that they follow because it's their agenda. It's how they open their meeting. It's how they run their meeting. It's how they close their meeting. I think we get hung up on the word ritual. I know that didn't answer your question, Dorothy, but I mean, we are required we are required to maintain our nonprofit status to fulfill certain obligations to our fraternal organization.
Thank you, Jody. That has given me fodder for my next president's column.
But we
And
can,
Jody,
Yes,
Jody,
I was going to say the same thing. I've never heard that explanation before. Thank you very much.
Thank God for Jody.
I tell,
Said no
I tell
one
my
ever.
wife, I tell my wife that all the time. So, yes, George.
Jody,
Probably the only other
To
person
be
you heard
a-
it from.
to be a legal meeting, you have to open and close in the fourth degree.
Right. Correct,
So if you don't open and close in the fourth degree, it's not a legal meeting.
correct.
but we can, I don't know if any of you can hear me or not, but we can, for example, we do the ritual, but Karen and I were just having a conversation about our next meeting, which is a week from tomorrow. And we have new members who want to bring their husbands to observe a meeting. And I was told, and the initial immediate reaction was, no, they cannot come until
That's not
they're,
true.
and
Oh,
well, I think that's right, because,
That-
but anyways, what we.
Stephanie, you
we're
can
all
tell
asking the
them
question.
otherwise, and I will stand behind you on that.
Right, well, it became, I mean, as the discussion, it was a good discussion, because how can you really attract new members if you never let them in the door? It's a
It's-
mystery, and
it's
that
that-
doesn't need to be like that.
It's that legacy mentality,
Yeah.
Stephanie. That's exactly what I was talking about when I referred to a
Agreed.
legacy Grange. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
It
The
used to,
days, oh, go ahead, Todd.
it used to be the practice that we would have classes of, 10, 15 new members come in for degrees, and then you would expect to lose 3/4 of them because they never saw a Grange meeting in progress, and it's at their first meetings that they say, no, I really don't want to do that. And then they don't come back again. Why would you work so hard to get people in without getting them as much information that they can before they join, to know that they truly want to be part of the organization? There's nothing wrong with saying it's not for me. The Grange isn't for everybody, the church isn't for everybody, but it behooves us to give them as much as we possibly can.
There was a day where we would invite people to our meetings and we would let them sit out in the ante room while we opened our meeting with the secret ritual that they weren't allowed to witness. And I always felt that it made people feel like we were doing something illicit, that we had to keep them out of the room for the opening and the closing. I thought it was very insulting. And so in later years, when we loosened up a bit and allowed non-members to see some of our ritual, I don't think I ever heard anybody say that they found it displeasing or insulting or unpleasant. They were actually pretty impressed. So I see no harm in letting members witness some of our ritual. None at
Haley.
all.
Great.
So maybe it goes back to when they were trying to keep the monopoly and railroad representatives out of the meetings.
Probably.
When we were truly a secret organization.
It was a secret
Yeah.
society at one
Sure.
point, so.
I don't think we
Well,
have
at
too
least,
many.
at least some of the agenda was secret because they were fighting a real fight. And
Right.
obviously Big Ag did eventually win for the most part, but the order of business is fairly common. I mean, it's basically Robert's rules too, so that's public. But like what happened was like, how do we fight Big Ag and how do we fight the railroads and how do we keep our farms intact? Had to be a thing that was kept secret. And that's one of the things that I've read about and Don has helped educate me on. And
No, absolutely. Jamie.
With Econ, we're community Grange, and on my Facebook post, because I do Econ's Facebook, I invite people to come in and sit in meetings, and we actually had quite a few people sit in. We were going to have a couple join a few months ago, but it's their busy season with their business, so they're coming back after because I've been in contact with them. But but they're excited. They've had more questions with witnessing a meeting than if they didn't know whatever. So I invite people to come in and experience us,
Well,
essentially.
they even asked if they could participate in the debate on one of the topics we were talking about, so, and
And
they
he
actually offered it. Okay.
He actually had some really good
So-
questions too.
So
That's a
today,
positive.
absolutely. So today's topic is fundraising. And all of these discussions that we just had actually are a great segue into the direction we want to take this evening's discussion. We're not the same Grange we were 25 years ago. Many of our older members, many of our workers have passed on. You know, it wasn't uncommon for a Grange to have, for all Granges to have huge public dinners. Those aren't options for many Granges. I call it the fat, dumb, and happy years, right? Everybody knew you could go to the Grange for a great dinner, so the Grange didn't have to do anything else, right? Now we've got to be creative. Now we've got to work with, in many cases, a very small group of people, right? You know, we have Granges that have less than 20 members. They're not pulling off a dinner that's served to 200 people, right? They just don't have the capacity. Well, we have some things that right here in our state Grange that are at our disposal if they're used correctly, and they need to be used correctly. We now have an alcohol policy. That means, and I am making no suggestions, I am not advocating for anything. I'm saying if you follow the rules, right? Sip and paints are very popular, right? Wine and beer tastings are very popular. If you follow the rules of the policy, which Todd is going to get into in a minute, these are now much more innovative ways for your Grange to raise funds than we had even a year ago. I am not advocating, I am not suggesting, I am not recommending that your Granges do these, but this is now out of the box, right? Everybody says, oh, we used to always, but we don't have the people, so we don't. And then their treasury dwindles, as does their membership, and then their hall goes on the market, and then a fine person from the community says, oh, we don't want that to go away. That's at least what's happened the last 2 times, you know, and that Grange has been resurrected. So, Todd, tell us about the alcohol policy for the Connecticut State Grange.
I drew the short straw this evening.
Yeah. You only typed it 1,000 times until we got it.
Oh, yeah.
We felt was right.
So I have some prepared notes on the alcohol policy. I'm going to go through them quickly because I don't want to miss something. Some Granges are looking at alcohol to improve attendance in existing events, to enhance new events they are planning. We all need to be mindful of the alcohol policy adopted first by the delegates. It's important to note that the delegates approved the policy to begin with. And then the State Grange Board of Directors adopted the procedures that we all have to follow. Step 1, contact the state president. Step 2, see step 1. And it may seem like I'm joking there, but I'm really not. Everything begins with the state president. You have to let the state president know what you're planning. And this is at the very beginning stages of your planning process. It's not after you've ordered the beer or the wine. No, it's right at the very beginning when you start talking about having an event that will have some kind of alcohol involved in it. Because there are certain things, there's boxes you have to check. If you're talking about having a beer booth at a fair or doing something even more elaborate, it's not only a long process with the state of Connecticut to get the permitting, but there is a process with the state Grange, and there's a minimum number of days required before your event to have all those things squared away before you can hold your event. Why? Well, simply, your Granges are chartered under the state and national Granges. Should the unthinkable happen, and I don't want to go through the scenarios, but you can bet whomever has a case against your Grange will follow the train all the way up to the national Grange, not missing the state Grange and anyone else attached to the order. That's just the name of the game when it comes to looking for money. And it is perilous if you don't have the proper insurance in place, that you don't have the proper permitting. You haven't trained people to sell and dispense alcohol properly. All those things have to be covered when you decide you're going to do this. What events need state Grange approval? Well, any and all events that involve the sale and/or consumption of alcohol. This includes beer booths, set fairs, paint and sips, wine tastings. The amount of licensing and permitting required depends on the event, but in all cases, your Grange should be sufficiently insured to cover unintended circumstances. The state Grange has insurance professionals both on our board and through the agency that handles most of our insurance to provide guidance. The digest does make the following exception. 10.11.3. All Granges may have sealed containers of alcoholic beverages at Grange meetings and activities for use as demonstration aids, gifts, or fundraisers. Such containers shall remain sealed at such Grange meeting or activity. So in that case, we're talking about you have a teacup social and someone donates a bottle of wine. Well, you can have the bottle of wine on the teacup social. They just can't open it at the event. They have to take it home and enjoy it at home. That type of thing. That is, in a nutshell, the alcohol policy. Some of our Granges are planning events. One of our Granges has a fair where they have a beer booth, and they've had to follow these procedures to be able to hold their event. The state Grange isn't trying to control the community Granges in any way. We're looking out for all of our best interests by establishing these policies and upholding the digest by being very clear about how these things have to be handled. So I'll open that up to any questions.
How do you handle a beer booth at an ag fair? Nobody's drinking the beer?
No, you with a beer booth, you would have to go through the state to get your proper licensing. But first, you have to contact the state Grange, because then we have to go through a checklist of you have the proper insurance in place. Are you doing all the things that you need to do to make sure that you have done your due diligence for your event? And the state master will go through that when you contact him and say, hey, we're going to have a beer booth at XYZ Grange Fair.
The first instance of this since we adopted the policy would be Lime Grange, the Hamburg Fair. I have just recently received documentation regarding insurance and their copy of the state temporary liquor permit from them with the letter of intent. So this is something that will be approved by the board at our next meeting, no doubt, but that is the procedure. This is the first event since our adoption to come before me as state president.
Dave, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Jody. Todd, that was really helpful. And Rob, I appreciate what you said. I guess my question is, I hope I didn't misspeak at my Grange, because Rob, I notified you via email that we were.
You notified me by email by way of your notice of your meeting, but you must, I would prefer if you would send me a written copy of that as well, because you also have to supply me with the license, the temporary liquor permit, and a copy of your insurance for the event. So
Right, so that's really helpful, but how would a Grange know this? What the delegates passed last year was you need to ask permission of the state executive committee. Phil Prelli tried to tell our Grange, I guess correctly, that we had to work through you. My question,
Dave,
yeah.
the whole procedure was laid out in a communication from our state secretary, Todd, some months ago, and mailed to every Grange in the land, our land of Connecticut, that is.
Okay.
So this is a documented thing that all of the Granges of Connecticut have been informed of the procedure. And if you weren't, then shame on you for not reading your mail that came to you, because this was something that Todd very clearly laid out in one of his communications to
Right.
all the secretaries of all the Granges.
No, so again, that's very helpful, but who was
Well, of
it
course it's helpful because it was all laid out.
right
Go ahead, Dave.
to?
Mhm.
Say that again, Dave?
Continue.
Yeah, no, who was it mailed to? Because I, as president of Riverton Grange, did not receive it.
It
Well,
went to every secretary.
Every
So,
second.
okay, that
And I
answers.
understand the problem in Riverton with that
Right.
And I
issue.
believe it was in the Granger as well.
It
But-
was.
It was.
But it's a good, but that's a good point, right? Something as important as the alcohol policy, maybe, right? I mean, we learn from doing, right? Maybe a policy like that, if we have anything come down the pike like that again, it goes to the master and the secretary.
I think that
It's
would be
such an
very
important
smart.
policy, right? Karen,
Thank you. Back to Stephanie's original question. I don't know what a beer booth is like. Can somebody briefly describe what does it look like? Are they sampling things? Is there a limit on how much one person can buy? Just a brief description, what they look like.
Have you been to a sporting event, Karen? Where they have beer for sale?
Or the
Just
Big
that.
E.
Not really,
Karen,
Todd.
Up
Not
at the
really.
Big E, they have the beer sales and the beer.
I don't
bars.
drink, so I don't know what the deal
so,
is.
so Karen, it would be up to you if there's a limit, right? It would be up to the organization if there's a limit, right? So there's no set policy in that. Obviously, the server has to be knowledgeable to recognize when someone has, in their opinion, consumed enough. All right, because you legally can't overserve someone,
That falls under the Dram Shop Act.
right? But I mean, so hypothetically, Greenfield Hill Grange at your ag fair, you have a local brewery, you want them to come in and set up a beer booth, hypothetically, okay? You'd go through all of these procedures with notifying the state Grange of filing for your permit, making sure your insurance is, but then you say, you know what, we're just a small local fair. We want people to sample and enjoy. We're gonna say no more than 2. So you're gonna sell tickets, right? And you're gonna just sell them 2 tickets, and all they can have is 2 beers. That's it. You can do it whatever way you wish, as long as you don't overserve them. Now, with some people, 1 is too much for them. So the server has to be able to recognize that.
And you can make it so that they're not getting a whole can. It's like a wine tasting. You're getting a small amount to drink. Then
Yep.
you could get more than 2 tickets. But obviously the server needs to know what's
Right.
going on. And
Right. Robin,
I happen to work for a liquor distributor. So I have a lot of information about this kind of stuff. The thing you want to be careful of is, and I don't know if this is in any of your procedures, but anybody that's serving the beverages to the public should be, and it may actually that they have to be required to be tips trained, which most of your liquor stores, your restaurants, they all have to train their folks on how to be tips trained. And it's really how to make sure that the individuals aren't that you're not over serving someone. So that's an important thing to pay attention to. And I think Stephen probably has our copy of it, and I'll ask him for it. I think it would be good if both the masters and the secretaries got it going forward. So I don't know if that's in the procedure or not, but I would highly recommend that. And additionally, if somebody is considering something where they're doing something that's a fundraiser type event, if they reach out and they're doing it through the state and they're getting the special permit, a lot of times the liquor distributors will, through different locations, can donate beverages to be used for these kinds of things. And that's something else to keep in mind. Even if you're just doing it as a gift in a basket, if you have a permit to do it, all the houses, that's what we call ourselves, will donate goods for that. Something else to be thinking about on the fundraising side of things.
Right. So again, I don't want, we strayed down an avenue of trying to figure out the logistics of being able to serve alcohol. I want to make it very clear. I have been known to enjoy my adult beverage from time to time. When I was younger, I've been known to enjoy more than my fair share of the adult beverage from time to time, but that is neither here nor there. But I am not advocating for alcohol in Granges. The State Grange is not advocating for alcohol in State Granges. It is a mechanism that the Granges can use properly to generate funds for their Grange. That's the reason why we bring it up. And Todd and I have felt it was very, very important that, seeing how it does exist, we talk about how to do it appropriately from the Grange liability standpoint. All right, Betty, you had your hand up there.
Well, I don't know how to do a fancy little hand raising, so
Well,
I did it this way.
I thought you were ready to give me the backhand. I was a little concerned.
No. I mean, so if somebody could teach me quickly how you officially raise your hand.
So at the bottom of the screen, there's a little strip of where if you move your cursor, if it disappears, there's like mute, stop video, participants chat. All the way over, there's a little smiley face that says reactions. You put your cursor.
There's no smiley face.
Okay.
I see the mute and 3 dots.
That's what I got too.
You
Right,
click on the 3 dots.
I did.
And
And
it'll
then-
take you over, and there may be 3 more dots, and then eventually you'll get to a thing called reactions. And you click on the reactions and it says raise hand.
No, I got mute my video, stop video, blur my background.
Yeah, it's not there.
Me too.
No, that's
You
not
have
the
the
one.
All right.
limited
Well, we'll-
version.
Well,
All right,
just do
I
this.
will
Just do
look
this
when
for
I have
now.
2 hands.
All right. Noel.
Yeah, Jody, on the beer gardens or beer booths, I just throw this as a lot of it is you can do like the Big E, you go up and get your beer and all that stuff. There's some organizations and fairs that you take your ticket, you go in, get your beer, you're in a corral, you drink your beer there, and then once you're done, you leave. That's a controlled area. A lot of firemen do that after their parades. And it's a controlled area that you can limit the amount of alcohol that's being served, because either it's by tickets, like Jody was saying, and it would be behooved, like with the Oktoberfest that Riverton's possibly talking about, is corralling them in so you don't have that surge of people wandering around, especially at fairs, spilling beers on exhibits, just doing like they usually do at the fairs. And those are the simplest ways. But if you plan on doing like Jody says, follow the rules to get it, because if you don't follow the rules and something happens, you're risking your charters. You could lose your Grange because you don't follow these rules. And it's every time you do it. So if you do a paint and sip, it's not just because you get it for one, it's for all. It's for each time you do the paint and strip, you got to go through sip, not strip. You got to go through the policies.
Yeah,
that makes
the
it a
the
mess
liquor
very-
permit is a one-time and done. That's it. Just one-time event.
Dave,
Yeah, I wanted to kind of steer the conversation just a little bit back to fundraising. And Noel actually mentioned we were approached by our local fire department, and they asked, would we be interested in doing this as an event for the Riverton Fair? They want to have a fireman's parade, go through the village. And so I think it's an idea. And the way we started the conversation was we didn't know how our Grange has a lot of new members was going to react to it. And it was quite interesting, the discussion and everything, because it could be a great fundraiser. And there's many different ways to do this. And we're not going to get into the details, but there's many different ways to do it. And I think, as we don't have a lot of members that can serve the meals like we used to, this is something different. And Riverton Grange was always known to do stuff during the Riverton Fair. And that's why we thought we would try this. So to my other Grange colleagues, I would say, you ought to reach out to groups to see, and it kind of ties back to page 120, 121 in the book, what's the community's aspiration and how does that tie into your Grange's aspiration? My Grange wants to rebuild our treasury after 3 years of no real fundraisers. So we thought this was going to be a good one to at least consider. And that's where we are right now, just in the consideration stage of working out the multitude of details.
Phil,
Dave, I would consider your email from your meeting notes the other night as your initial what's the word I'm looking for?
Notice.
That you have informed me of your intent. Okay, so if you wish to go forward with this endeavor, it's upon your Grange, whoever, to get the proper insurance and temporary liquor permit, which you would send to me in a nice little mailed envelope. So,
all right, Phil.
Okay.
Well, I think, we're talking a lot about details and what we're gonna do. Anybody who's been involved in something new that goes on in the Grange, you have to understand, this is the first time we're going through this. Guess what? There's gonna be changes and we're gonna make modifications. And that's where it's important for us as leaders to look forward and say, hey, this didn't work out real well. We need to be able to do A, B, C, and D. But let's remember that we have to take the first step. If you never take the first step, you're never going to get to the end of the race. So we need to look at this as the first step for us, because it's all new. Having alcohol in Grange meetings is all new. And the other point was, even if you have a bottle of wine at an auction or a teacup auction or whatever, and after the meeting, that doesn't mean that you can open the bottle of wine at your Grange hall. It can't be opened on premise. It's not just the function that was going on, it's on the premise of the Grange hall. So there's I just wanted to add a little bit to what Todd said on that.
Yep. Robin.
I want to change it up a little bit and talk about actual fundraising for a few
Thank you.
minutes, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Wallingford started with very little funds. So we didn't really even have a kitty to really even pay for some stuff to begin with. So we've done some out of the box stuff, and it interrelates with alcohol a little bit. But what we've done is we've reached out to all of the local businesses. So we have events where we've gone twice now to a local brewery. So they hold the license, they hold the insurance. We just settle up a bill at the end of the night. And how we do it is, as part of the ticket price of them coming in, they pay us, for example, one night we did it $30. They get one drink ticket, they get one raffle ticket. We had some Grange related items for raffle, and then the rest of the money, and then they're at the bar. We give them the ticket, they go to the bar, they get their drink. We pay for one drink. If they want more, it's on them at the bar. they take care of it. We're not involved with it. And then we just settle up the tab at the end of the night. And we've done really well. We've made almost $1,500 between the two events that we've done that way. We've also reached out to local restaurants about having events at the local restaurants. We're hoping to do a winery as well. So that's an idea if people want to get a sense of the alcohol, but we're not doing it in our hall. So there's no insurance requirements because we're not on our premises. We're having it somewhere else.
What kind of arrangement are you trying to make with the restaurant?
In some cases, we had what we called an open meeting. And so when we were trying to reform ourselves and kind of after we had taken the charter back, but we were still not able to meet in our hall because we had no heat, we did meetings at local restaurants. And what I did was we picked an Italian place. I paid for the pizza. Everything else was BYOB. So they paid for their own drinks, whatever they wanted. And then I supplied the pizza and we had a meeting in like the back room of the restaurant. We talked about what the Grange is and what the Grange was.
No, you said, I thought, I might have misunderstood you. I thought you said that you had some fundraising endeavors with local restaurants.
We did. So in that one, what everybody did was they put $5 in a hat, $5 to come in. I paid for the pizza. And then we used that as a small fundraiser to kind of see how it was. Some of the other things we're in the planning phases for are things like farm to table dinners, where we can work with farmers and restaurants in the area to highlight different things, but we haven't quite gotten those off the ground yet. Some of the other ideas are once we get our hall refurbished is to do like a dinner dance or just a dance at the hall itself, and to bring in maybe some theater groups. One of the ideas we have on the table is to work with our local Wallingford Community Theater in the winter to put on a murder mystery dinner. So we would work with a restaurant to cater the dinner, and we would have it be a murder mystery thing. And we wouldn't have alcohol because we're not, we wouldn't know. I don't know that we would have enough time to get through with the state. And I have a whole bunch of other questions on how you guys are getting your permits, but that can be handled separately. And maybe I can take that up with Todd or somebody that's done it, so that we can have that for going forward. But those were some of the ideas that we had that worked well for us.
I would direct all questions of the alcohol policy to the state master, the state president, excuse me, because the responsibility for that policy solely sits on his shoulders.
Okay.
And that way you're only getting one answer and that's it. But Ailey was first and then we'll go to Karen.
Okay, so to pick up on what Robin was saying, one of the things that, because, playing up the history, we used to have dances every month, and our floor was made to dance on, hardwood maple. My daughter and I used to go to the Cadillac Ranch all the time to do country western line dancing, and DJs often have a following all their own. And one of the DJs would be willing to have dances at the hall. And I really thought that one of the big advantages of this, of our being a dry site, was that a lot of people who used to dance at the Cadillac Ranch and don't anymore because they're in recovery or they just don't drink anymore. They don't want to be around drunk people anymore. I personally find it amusing to be around drunk people, even though I don't drink that much. But anyway, that we could have, country western line dances and have them be dry. So not everything has to revolve around alcohol.
The Connecticut State Grange is not advocating the consumption of alcohol.
I was just taking it because
clear.
This whole discussion has seemed so alcohol policy centric, and I understand you want to clear it up, but we're in like the home stretch here and we really haven't touched on any of the more traditional fundraisers that really work.
I agree.
So if I may, I want to jump in and ask
Karen first,
our new friend, Tim. Hello, Tim. You're a different age group than me. What would appeal to someone in your age group for fundraising? What would be successful, do you think?
Well, I mean, fundraiser is all about getting the word out and getting what's kind of popular right now. And I mean, not to say that alcohol has become more acceptable, but so I don't know, just looking at these alcohol events, I know there's a lot of process to go through in terms of getting permits for our halls. And I do like what we've been going through for Wallingford, working with Center Street Brewery, and just like Robin had said, hosting a fundraiser somewhere else and having people come there. So we're not saying we're getting around the policy, but we're not keeping that, you know, we don't have that burden.
Well, so Tim, if I may, what
Yeah.
I hear when you guys say that you're going to an offsite for a fundraiser, what you're doing is you're allowing somebody else to do all the work, and you're reaping a portion of the financial benefit with none of the labor. That's smart.
Well, yeah,
Regardless where it is, it could be at the donut shop. It wouldn't matter.
part of it, I mean, other businesses want to get the advertisement, they want to get their name out as well. And I think what we're doing is by bringing some extra business to them, especially we've been doing it on some of the weeknights when things are a little slower, brings a little more business into them. So it's a win-win for both.
Absolutely.
But yeah, in terms of fundraisers for now, a lot of people, I would say, don't necessarily, you know, with COVID, everything, people aren't present as much as they used to be. They're not around. So fundraisers don't have to be a huge gathering anymore. You can have things that, what am I saying? They can be over time or anonymous. I don't know.
Anne Marie, you had your hand up. Is Anne Marie still here? There she is.
Yeah, I am. So I was thinking about that woman that was talking about farm to table. I mean, when I did my farm to table, I got a lot of farmers to donate the products. And then when the people came, I list all the farmers that had donated from their farm. So the people that came knew which farm to go to as far as buying products from them. So I figured that was a win-win situation for both the Grange and the farmers themselves.
Alma.
Unmute. Well, you mentioned something, the dances, and what I was thinking of, she's talking about the floor. Ballroom dancers. I do ballroom dancing, and we would love a good floor if you ever came to a group and say, hey, would you like to use our hall? Because sometimes we're always looking for a place to go dancing, or maybe some of the dance studios and like that, because the same thing with yoga or with country line dancing. I think Snacks at Grange has a country line dance in there all the time. That might be, if you don't do it, at least rent the hall to them or something. But those are groups, they're always looking for a nice floor to dance on.
Our Grange has all of that, what you're looking for. And I've just wanted to ask for the longest time, because I did a square dance for the Grange when I first joined 8-9 years ago. And the callers for a square dance back then was $250. And you're not charging that much for people to come to fundraiser. And if you want the fundraiser to be a little bit more lucrative, it was more outreach at that point. It was great. Everybody had a good time. But I see all the other Granges are having line dancing and square dancing and other things. Where are they getting their callers that are not prohibitive in cost?
What I was hoping to do, which we haven't actually done yet, but the DJ that works at one of the DJs at the Cadillac Ranch, I was hoping to strike up a partnership and like split the cover. Like, you know, if it's a $5 cover, he gets 4, we get 1 or something to that effect. And then we also sell refreshments.
Tim, you had your hand up.
Yes, no, I was just gonna say, let me see my. Yeah, I was just gonna say about reaching out to the community and like, we mentioned renting the hall, obviously Wallingford, we're still in the works with our hall. But just reaching out to other community organizations that are looking to use it, like you said, with the ballroom dancing, I think that's a great way to just fundraise a little money again, where you're not doing a whole lot of work, someone else is basically doing it for you. And I think it also gives a lot more recognition to the Grange itself, and that we're doing things. So, and like we had said before, having the theater group involved, to piggyback a little bit with the line dancing, I've done a little bit. One of my friends used to actually be on a line dancing team. I forget the name of it. I think it was Premier Entertainment. They run line dancing at a couple bars. One of them's, I believe, in Old Saybrook. But my wife has done some line dancing here in Wallingford at the Hungarian Hall. There was a teacher there. She signed up for a class, and I'll see if she has the name of that instructor. But they ran a few
Thanks.
classes every once in a while. So yeah, anyways.
Terry,
I was just going to say that Taghannock Grange has square dance / contra dancing every couple of months, and their caller is a member of that Grange, or the one that they standardly use. So that's how they get around having to pay for the caller, because the caller is a member and they work out something with them where they can do the events. And I can also say that Cheshire Grange has a program every year on ballroom dancing, and the couple who kind of runs the program are members of Cheshire Grange. So maybe part of the deal is to start, working to attract members who are in these needed positions, so to speak. So if you know you need a caller because you want to have a lot of dances, then maybe you start soliciting members from that. Or if you need a member who's a DJ, then maybe you start looking at various DJs and start soliciting them to become members and trying to get that overlap.
Bob.
My boss, Clint McLean, is a square dance caller, fairly well known among the square dance clubs in this part of the state. He is currently the caller for Rockin' Roosters out of Newtown. If anybody is interested, I can put you in touch with him. I don't know what he charges, but I think that if you told him I referred you, and he'd be pretty reasonable. He's a decent guy, and
Thank you. I'm
Karen.
interested.
Thank you. As we're winding up, I just want to mention that in my mind, half of any fundraising event is the publicity. So anything that we can do to remind about the wonderful opportunities we have through our publicity committee. Terry, if you want to say anything about how people can reach you. I feel like people still aren't aware at all that you and Bob have to offer. Thank you.
Robin.
I had one quick question. Does the Grange, the national or the state, have any issue about gaming like bingo?
No, as long as you file for the appropriate permitting through your town or the state, bingo has been some Granges had in the past done that for years until their membership dwindled to the point where they couldn't sustain it. But
Okay,
yeah,
when you have bingo, you can't have any money changing hands, right?
If you go through the Department of Revenue, you can do that. But you have to
Then
get
they
licensed
take
through the Department of
whatever,
Revenue.
50% of it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's other ways to have prizes that don't involve money.
Mhm.
What about card parties, like it used to be the whist parties or setback parties?
What are those?
Exactly. None of us are as old as you, Alma. Nobody
Yeah, I
knows.
Well,
Hey,
don't
I-
pick on Alma.
Hey.
I play setback at the Elks. They do a
I-
big
I-
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I play step back every Monday night. I play step back every Monday night. So
Glastonbury still does whisk parties once a month.
Up in one of the bars in Maine, they have cribbage tournaments.
The others
cribbage is easier than setback. I will say that.
The other is like people are doing these cornhole games and all that they do. Some Granges have done it, but even before, going old time, it was called baseball, where you had a piece of plywood and you throw darts at it. And they'd have baseball leagues all over that. That was especially
Oh,
in
yeah, dart baseball.
northeast leg of Connecticut.
Dart baseball was big out here in the day, yeah.
New York State still has a state championship every year, plus a golf tournament and bowling tournament as fundraisers.
Terry,
I'm gonna do two things. The first thing to go along with the conversation here is that Cannon Grange a while back had a Scrabble tournament. And it was like a 3-month thing where they would play and then narrow it down in competition, and it went over really well. It was probably the year before COVID, so it was a little longer than I think time-wise, but they were very successful with it at the time. Just to throw out a little ad here, our virtual social hour is on fundraising this month. It is July 20th. The notice will go out in the mass email that will go out this week about it. So everybody is invited to that, where we can pick up the fundraising conversation from this there, if anybody wants to attend. And basically, it's going to be a brainstorming meeting on coming up with ideas for events and fundraising for Granges. So that's coming up. And then to cycle back with what Karen said, we do offer a lot of different things as a public relations committee. Our last article in the last Granger highlighted some of that, some of the different resources that we offer and what's available. And anybody can text me or email me, and we can discuss and get things going and set up. The biggest thing that I have is just please give me time. Don't say that contact me on Monday and say I need it on Saturday, because that's not really acceptable in my time frame these days. So I just need time to do things. And Granges should be planning things enough ahead of time. They shouldn't be planning pop-up events within a week. So the more time you can give, the more time you can publicize it, the more word that you give out and get out to the public. So that's all. Thank you.
So we've run out of time because we consumed far more time on the alcohol policy than I imagined we would. Seriously, our goal was to just make sure you understand there's rules around it. One thing that we wanted another thing that we wanted this, what we just had, right? Where people throw Scrabble contests and card parties. And, the key is get people in your hall, provide refreshments, make them comfortable, let them see what your Grange is about. That then leads to membership growth, right? But people have to know you're there. People have to know who you are, what you're doing, and very important, they want to know what you're doing with your money. You claim you're a part of the community. They want to know that you're supporting the community as well. So don't be afraid to tell people what you're doing. The Grange as a whole for many, many years has been a well-kept secret. We should be very proud of what we do. We should be proud of the scholarships we give out. We should be proud of the whatever we're doing, and we should put it out there. And then success follows. When people know that they're investing their time and their money into an event at a Grange that's giving back to something that they care about, their community, they're going to follow. Very quickly, I apologize we're over, but it's definitely worth mentioning. The State Grange has a foundation. Some of the Granges, a few of the Granges on here have been utilizing, receiving grants that are going through the foundation. There's very specific procedures for obtaining and securing grants. And that all starts with letting the foundation president and secretary know that you're going after a grant, so that when the money shows up, we're not scratching our head saying, okay, where does this money go? I don't want to use absolutely any time on the foundation at this point, but if you're considering grants, there's a specific procedure you have to follow to use the foundation as your mechanism for your grant. So get a hold of Sue Messino or Todd as secretary of the foundation, and they will tell you what they need so that you can get the money into the foundation, and then it can be processed within and it could take 90 days based upon when we meet. It could take 90 days, so don't be shocked. But, so that the process can work and it can work smoothly. We struggle with getting funds, not knowing where they're supposed to be going, and then Grange is getting upset with us because they don't have their money. Well, we can't solve that for you. Again, we used a lot of time too much time on the alcohol policy. I was hoping for more discussion around just brainstorming ideas on fundraising. The last 10 minutes I thought was excellent. Hopefully everybody felt that they got something out of this evening. We do have homework for the next meeting. It has nothing to do with this meeting. Todd, do you have that?
Yeah, I sent an email at the beginning of this meeting. Everyone should have received with your homework for next meeting. If you've read the syllabus, Chris Hamp, the Vice President of the National Grange, will be with us for her program, which is member community involvement and activities. So she sent along a PDF of pre-work for you. It's not elaborate. It's just asking you to put together a couple lists of things that come to your mind. So go through it. And then our reading is what Jody already read. Pages 125 to 139 of chapter 3. And then we will put chapter 3 to rest after next meeting.
Yeah, I had it in my head. It was the whole chapter. But all right. Does anybody have anything on fundraising? Any questions on the balance of the program? We're about halfway through.
Jody, I was just thinking about something you said a minute ago, and the thought that came to mind when you're trying to attract new members is that you're really a salesperson and you're filling the need. And that goes back to what Jamie talked about in her membership presentation, is you're filling a need. So if people just look at selling their Grange as trying to fit it to the lives of the people they're trying to attract into membership, you've all heard it before, but I mean, that's what you're doing. And thank you, Jody. Thank you, Todd, everybody, for your contributions tonight. I think we had a great presentation and a great discussion.
I agree.
Well, with that, everyone so Dorothy, you got to tell us about the painted white horse next time. That made me chuckle when that came up. Paint the horse. So.
Yeah, but I won't be here next time, so it'll
Oh,
be the
that's
time.
right. You won't be. You won't be. Well, save that for a story when we're drinking at one of these Grange events. Okay.
Okay, I will, Jody.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night,
Thanks.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Night.